Welcome to the Willie Bragg Show. I am your host, Willie Bragg. I hope each and every one of you are doing well. I just did a very long video about, I did a long video about Rob Reiner and the actor Tony Booth, and it brought me to the subject of Great Britain. So I decided to keep on the subject of the UK in relations to the United States, and hopefully this will not be that long. But it's just something that I keep touching upon, and I just kind of want to put it in like one video to kind of get what I need out of my chest, what I have to say. So we'll start with basically the United States and Great Britain in terms of their politics and the Overton window between the two countries, because both countries, I would say both countries may be classified as center right currently in the world right now in the West. But I will say between the United States and Great Britain, I would say that right now in the year 2022, that the American political culture still hands down, unfortunately, wins the contest as a country with an Overton window that shifts politically to the right. And I think that most people would agree with that. If you compare the United States to Great Britain, or you compare the United States to France, you compare the United States to Canada, or any Western country, Germany, Sweden, Norway, you name it. I mean, the only other countries maybe in the West that may be more right wing, maybe some of the former Eastern European countries. But even with the former Eastern European countries, like unfortunately places like Hungary, that has people like pricks like Viktor Orban, who is a horrible president in Hungary, very right wing, almost borderline fascist in many ways. Still, when it comes down to economics and things of that nature, because that's what I'm kind of focusing on, the country shifts further left in areas where even a Viktor Orban, who is a prick and a horrible person, would have an economics that would almost be embraced by a Bernie Sanders or an AOC type in the West. They just wouldn't support him on social issues. And because the Overton window is further left, which means even the right takes a further left position on things like economics. So here in the United States, obviously, I have said it before, Franklin Roosevelt got elected. He got us out of the Great Depression. There's no real debate about it, although there are historical revisionists in this country that try to actually convince people that FDR didn't get us out of the Depression. It's all about the free market, the free market, the free market, the free market. I hear it all over the place. And, and there is this mantra about the free market. And it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's this economic libertarian mindset. I'm not opposed to social libertarianism, but the economic libertarianism is toxic because as libertarianism became popular in the United States in the conservative movement, it seems like that's all the conservatives ended up embracing, the economic side. When you hear Ben Shapiro talks about economics, he'll say, I embrace economic libertarianism. Or Sean Hannity would be like, well, I embrace economic libertarianism. Or let's see, Lauren Chen, the beautiful but evil Lauren Chen would say, I like economic libertarianism, but on the social issues, not so much. And so that's what we're left with. I mean, even Marjorie Taylor Greene will favor basic economic libertarianism, but anything else that counts when it comes to legalizing weed or LGBTQ equality or getting us out of these neocon wars or the surveillance state, reforming law enforcement, such as, like the Pentagon giving law enforcement Pentagon military style shit. I mean, it's kind of like with Rand Paul in the U.S. Senate. I have problems on a lot of areas with Rand Paul. But the areas where Rand Paul is based and he makes sense are the areas where the Republicans don't want anything to do with. I mean, he's correct on foreign policy. When it comes to foreign policy, the Republicans run away. They're just as different as they can be from Rand Paul. And they go and embrace Liz Cheney in the U.S. House of Representatives and embrace Lindsey Graham in the U.S. Senate when it comes to foreign policy. Whereas, any Republican worth any respect in the House and in the Senate would embrace someone like Thomas Massey of Kentucky, or for the U.S. House, or Rand Paul of the U.S. Senate on issues like foreign policy or some domestic civil liberties issues. But I say that to some progressives, they'll tell me some fucked up positions that Rand Paul embraces on the right. Hey, I don't, just because I say something nice about Rand Paul or some other libertarian-leaning conservative that actually is consistent across the board, doesn't mean that I embrace every aspect of libertarianism about them. But when somebody's correct on something, they're correct on something, and I'm going to not be so long-winded. But here it is. Getting back to what I was saying, FDR, basically, we need to move away from economic libertarianism. That's what we don't need to do. We need to go back to old-fashioned social democracy, New Deal liberalism. That's what we used to have. New Deal liberalism, Great Society liberalism. It is what worked. Don't let the Reagan Revolution and don't let the right-wing consensus in this country that's actually even plagued the Democratic Party, don't let them convince you otherwise. Reagan Revolution and conservatism that's actually manifested itself since the Reagan years has been a failure. It's been a failure. Deregulation has meant the bubble, housing bubble of 2007. Busting unions meant staggering wages and a declining middle class and more poverty in this country. It's why we are a first world country with citizens that live like they're in the third world. And that's what we're dealing with right now. And it's because we moved away from the New Deal consensus of FDR. So in the United States, we have FDR's New Deal consensus. In the UK after World War II. Now, during the war, Prime Minister Churchill had a mixed cabinet, and that mixed cabinet was the mixed cabinet of Labor and Liberals. In there was Tories, Labor, and Liberals, and everybody did their part to fight against Hitler. And there was a promise. It was a Beveridge report, and it was promised, endorsed by the three political parties in the UK after World War II, that there would be a national health service established. That was a promise to the British people. No matter which party were to get elected, all three political parties promised a national health service. Clement Attlee, the man that's above in the picture, smoking the pipe. I couldn't find they're both smoking a pipe. Clement Attlee above served as the Prime Minister of Great Britain from 1945 to 1951. And he is my favorite Prime Minister. He is one of the people that led me to embracing socialism. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get a single picture of Clement Attlee, because I will talk about Harold Wilson in just a moment. So that's what I'm going to do. Give me a moment here. All right, give me a moment. Clement Attlee. Yes, Clement Attlee was the Prime Minister of Great Britain from 1945 to 1951. And his Labor government basically brought about the National Health Service, the welfare state, expanded union rights, nationalized almost half of the economy of Great Britain, pretty much. And so he was everything that Margaret Thatcher hated and reversed during the 1980s. You know where I stand. You know my politics, and you know about the politics of Great Britain. You know that I don't particularly think too highly of Margaret Thatcher. But the socialism that Great Britain would be known for, this man, Clement Attlee, was the man that was behind the socialism. And one could call him Britain's FDR. But, he did more than FDR. FDR might have wanted to do almost as much, but I think FDR was more of a capitalist than Clement Attlee. Clement Attlee was a real socialist. Let's see. Then there was, in the 1960s, there was Harold Wilson. And Harold Wilson was also the Prime Minister of Great Britain. And there he is, also, famous with his pipe and all of that. And he continued the reforms. I believe free universities were available. I think free milk were available to school children, things of that nature. And it was reforms that were kind of almost similar to that of the Great Society. So, and there was a lot of public housings that were also being available, and did a lot to eliminate people from being nearly homeless and all of that. And so he did a lot of good for the British people as well. And I do have a lot of admiration for Harold Wilson. So that you can almost say that the FDR LBJ consensus and the Clement Attlee, Harold Wilson consensus sort of coexisted side by side by coincidence, but I would say, excuse me, I just ate earlier, a good kind of coincidence, a very good proactive kind of a coincidence. Now let's go to America, back to America after FDR. Between FDR and LBJ, I know Kennedy was president, but he wasn't president long enough to really make a difference. So we're going to talk about these two guys here. We talk about Dwight Eisenhower and Richard Nixon. Now, Dwight Eisenhower did not reverse the New Deal. In fact, everything kind of remained the same. And so everything remained the same in the U.S., and the interstate highway system was developed, and unions were allowed to remain in existence. We had things like the 90% top tax rates for millionaires at that time. That's considered controversial today. It's considered controversial today. Dwight Eisenhower was to the left of the snake. Elizabeth Warren on that issue. So, it was just kind of like he was a good man, and NASA was created under Eisenhower, which, as I said the other day, NASA actually, through the public sector, created technologies. People say that the private sector is what creates technology. Public sector is just as capable of creating technology as well, and it did get us to the moon. There was a commitment to get us to the moon, and some of the technology that we take for granted today that exists, even the computers that we all use, even our cell phones. All this goes back to the days of NASA. So, so the governmental commitment toward progress reaps its reward even in the private sector. So when people want a government hands off of the economy, they really don't know what they're talking about. You can make government do proactive good for the economy, for the people, and in some ways, even for a free market system, even though I'm not passionate about free markets. So with regard to Richard Nixon on the right there, he was the vice president under Eisenhower. Well, he was the president after Johnson. And, he did things like OSHA, and he did things like he tried to provide universal basic income. He tried to actually work with Ted Kennedy on a universal health care program that could have possibly led to Medicare for all. That's where we're at with the Republican Party. The Republican Party of Eisenhower and Nixon were, in their time, to the left of the Democrats today. That's where we're at right now. So what does that have to tell you about the Republicans? What does that have to tell you about the Republicans? So we go into really, really dark times, and the beginning of the dark era in politics. When the New Deal consensus was pretty much rejected, and we live under the Reagan Revolution today. And same thing in Great Britain when Margaret Thatcher became prime minister and attacked the unions and started to massively privatize as much and gut as much as she could, creating a lot of unemployment and a lot of misery during the 1980s. The only positive thing I can say about Margaret Thatcher is that she did not, to her credit, get rid of the National Health Service. Again, we're talking political Overton window, because Margaret Thatcher would not get rid of the National Health Service, which is a socialized medical program that was brought about by the Clement Attlee government. You compare that to Hillary Clinton, to Barack Obama, to Joe Biden, to them not wanting to do a modest Medicare for all program, not even really wanting to do a public option and hemming and hawing about that. Compare that to Margaret Thatcher not getting rid of the National Health Service. How fucking sad is it that Margaret Thatcher is a better socialist than Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Nancy Pelosi? That tells you how terrible things are here in the United States today, because at least in Great Britain, it would have been political suicide to get rid of the National Health Service. I mean, it would have been political suicide. I mean, anybody who attempts to do it, they're just out of there. They might sometimes try to be sneaky and do some shit. British people let on. Those people are out in the next election. It eventually catches up with them. The National Health Service is popular. Even the right wing benefits from the National Health Service in the UK. So and that's one significant area where they're to the left of the United States. Even the right wing are to the left of the supposed progressives here in the United States of America. That is a sad state of affairs. That's not a good thing for Americans. That's not a good thing. And as Bill Clinton Reaganized the Democratic Party and turned it into the swamp it became, Tony Blair was busy doing the same damn thing in the UK, basically shifting the Labour Party away from its socialism and making it a Thatcher-like party. Now, New Labour compared to the New Democrats here in the U.S., New Labour is probably still better than the New Democrats in the United States, but they were the same in the regard that they were a shell of their former selves. Now, prior to Bill Clinton, you could say that the Democratic Party in the United States was to the right of the British Labour Party and maybe to the left, slightly to the left of the Tories, or maybe no further right than the Tories. You could say that about the conservatives prior to Bill Clinton. After Bill Clinton, in the United States today, right now, in the year 2022, I will argue that the Democratic Party of the United States is to the right of the British Conservative Party, maybe with an exception on some social issues here and there. But even on some social issues, the British Conservative Party are a little more open-minded than the Republicans are here in the United States. But by large measure, still, I will argue that the British Conservative Party is to the left of the American Democratic Party here in the United States, and that the Republicans in the United States, if the Democrats are to the right of the Conservative Party, that means that even though the Republicans have a healthy relationship with the Tories in the UK, that means that the Republicans are to the right, not only to the right of the Tories, and they're almost approaching UKIP territory as far as the economics is concerned, because there's the closest thing to this kind of weird corporatism, libertarian corporatism that some on the right here love so much. Plus, what is ugliest about the British National Party, and the British National Party in the UK is a fascist organization. The only benevolent thing that exists about the British National Party is that they're kind of okay with the welfare state. They're kind of okay with the National Health Service. Because just like I mentioned with Hungary and some of the other Eastern European countries that are probably further right in many ways in the United States, is that the Overton window economically is to the left of the United States. It's the United States that has a problem on the economics, not the other Western countries. That's my point. That is my point right there. So yeah, I mean, so Bush and Clinton work hand in hand to basically destroy the left, the actual left, and to turn what would be the center left into the center, which means that the center in the 1990s to the present became basically what the soft right were previously. And that's where we at today. Now, it gets worse than that because Bill Clinton stepped down after 2 terms. And then the worst president we ever had became president, and that was George W. Bush. And with the George W. Bush presidency, work hand in hand with Tony Blair. And of course, you know where I stand on the Bush-Cheney policy when it comes to the what happened in regard to the Middle East and the war that was taking place, the neocon wars, and Tony Blair was complicit in that too. So when I call George W. Bush war criminal, it also applies to Tony Blair. It's just that Tony Blair is a little smarter than George W. Bush. He has a higher IQ, which is maybe why I should be more critical in some ways of Tony Blair in that regard. Because George W. Bush is frankly a stupid man. So we're in the near present. Even though Donald Trump isn't president anymore, I have to do this for the sake of my sick humor. And I joked that this could happen during the Trump presidency, and lo and behold, it happened. I mentioned a scenario very early on when Theresa May was the prime minister. I said, well, good Lord, Boris Johnson could become the next leader of the Conservative Party, and that would make him prime minister, and that would make him a partner of Donald Trump. And my Lord, he is Britain's Donald Trump. And that's what happened. And he is kind of a funny, eccentric weirdo like Donald Trump, but less right-wing than Donald Trump, and by comparison, and I would say probably even a little smarter. He's a little smarter than Donald Trump, and that's not a high bar, but just for a moment of clarity, just saying basically. And of course, we no longer have Donald Trump. We have somebody with dementia in the White House right now as we speak. So I'm going to conclude by saying that we're really fucked as a country because we are officially to the right of Great Britain and the rest of the Western world. Now, I really wanted to see this scenario happen. I wanted to see a President Bernie Sanders, and I wanted to see a Prime Minister Jeremy Corbyn. It never happened. I'm sad that it's never happened. Because Bernie Sanders is what we needed in America. We needed that. We needed the socialism we never had in America. We needed what the Social Democrats did in many of these countries. We needed what the Labor parties did in those other countries here. We needed that. We didn't get that. We ended up with Hillary Clinton as the nominee. Ended up with Donald Trump as president. Then we ended up with supposedly getting back to normal with Joe Biden. And then we may end up getting Donald Trump again, or even worse, Ron DeSantis. Or you may even get Kamala Harris. God help us. I mean, none of these names I'm mentioning is of any comfort to me. I mean, it'd be kind of awesome if somehow Bernie Sanders become president, or some third party person outside the two-party system could break on through the two-party system. That would be a nice thing to happen, but it's not going to happen because, we are under such horrible exceptionalism here in the United States, and it's just a sad state of affairs. So we have a nice little chat line here, and a chat line with some questions for one person in particular. But Hot Retarded Chicks, hey, how are you? I'm glad. I told you I was going to be back. Let's see. Joey Bowie. I think I know who Joey Bowie is. Joey Bowie, how much do you feel that the Soviet Union played a role in a lot of the Western countries' socialist policies? Well, I'll tell you how I feel about that. And I'm not a Marxist-Leninist in any capacity. When I understood what socialism was, and I'm not one of those, I'm anti-communist. I'm used to be one of them. But I'm not a Leninist in any capacity. The closest thing I am to a Leninist is that I may have sympathies toward Titoism. I have a soft spot for Joseph Broz Tito. That may be the extent I go. But as far as the Soviet Union is concerned, I think that World War II, the aftermath of World War II, created a situation where they were compelled to rebuild their countries, and socialism was a fast track way to rebuild their countries. And it worked so well that the Labor parties and the conservative parties were pretty much okay with it. And that's why they had a consensus that you will never get in America. So we're just never going to get that here in the United States. And I run across some on the hard left. I know some tankies that think that the fear of God of the Soviets were the reason why there was a welfare state in the West. That was why, and all that. I don't know. I don't know, because even some of the communist parties in, let's say, places like Italy and France and Spain and in Holland and places, and in Sweden, even, and places like that, they were kind of independent. And they're, what they call Euro communism. They didn't take the Soviet line. They end up behaving almost like junior social democrats in many ways. A lot of them ended up supporting labor in the UK. So almost in the same way that the Communist Party would support the Democrats in the United States, except that the Democrats is not a labor party nor a socialist party or a social democratic party, contrary to what the conservatives would tell you. Joey, I got a question to ask you. Are you the Joey that I know that lives up in New York? If you're still online, please let me know. So I'm curious. It's been a while. If we haven't talked in a while, I've been wanting to talk to you. If that is in fact you. We're fucked, says Hot Retarded Chicks. Oh, of course we are. We're Americans. We're going to be fucked. We had a pandemic. We still had no fucking universal health care. I mean, I can never, ever get over that one. I can never get over that one. Britain got bombed during World War II. They got health care. We got COVID because Mitch McConnell don't care. That means all the politicians in Washington, whether they like them or not, don't want to upset them. So we die if we get COVID. So that's where we are at in America right now. Let's see. Bruno Goetz writes, will the Gordon Gekko mentality always have a place in the U.S., or will it ever be completely will it ever be completely looked down upon? All I know is that we're fucked at the end of the day. That's all I know. Let me see. Nah, I'm from St. Louis. Ha ha ha. Oh, okay. I was thinking you were. I know somebody who's a fan of David Bowie, and his name is Joey. So I thought you might have been that particular Joey. So anyway, folks, I am a little on the sleepy side. I have stuff that I have to do in a little bit, so I'm going to call it a night. If you like what you heard, press like and comment. If you disagree with what I have to say, comment anyway. Let's see. We'll have a conversation, anyway, and feel free to share the content on this channel. As a First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to inform you to create your own platform and utilize it because we're the muckrakers of our time. Hit the notification bell, hit that subscribe button, not in that order, hit the subscribe button and a notification bell. And until next time, remember, we have a class war to wage. There's no war like the class war. We need to remain committed to peace as the ultimate foreign policy, because war does nothing more than serves the military-industrial complex and, fatten the bank accounts of the defense contractors. We need to fight for all equality for all people everywhere, and we need to go and fight for free speech to defend all speech, which includes our speech, which includes freedom of the press. Because when people like Julian Assange isn't free, none of us are free. Therefore, when none of us are free, we're all Julian Assange. And until next time, I am going to part ways this evening and conclude by saying to you all, music. Hope you like the new theme song at the end.